I've worked for Sir Rock McAlpine for nearly 5.5 years. I actually started in their sustainability department in our London region as a project sustainability manager on site. As Shamir said, I now work in procurement. My initial focus does remain around ensuring that we deliver our sustainability strategy through procurement. But the last 18 months, I've also been focusing around our response to the Modern Slavery Act and how we're taking that further. And sustainability is my background, but I do sit in procurement. So, and we have, as I talk about later, we do have the buy-in across from board level as well. So just to give you a bit of background around McAlpine, we, come 2019, will have been in existence for 150 years. Back then, and as is now, we are still family-run and family-owned. Family members have a very much day-to-day involvement in the running of the business. This photo was obviously taken back in 1885. That was, I think, up in Scotland somewhere. I think it's fair to say back then, my job obviously didn't exist. I don't think health and safety existed. But we have a core set of family values that have always been in existence, but we're being far more vocal about them, shall I say now, about being an honourable business, our family ethos, excelling in engineering excellence and enterprising. And above that, our vision is to proudly build Britain's future heritage. And I think it's fair to say that we'll only be around in another 150 years' time if we ensure that we tackle issues like modern slavery proactively. So moving on again, some of you I'm sure will recognise some of the buildings that we've built in and around London and the UK. The Olympic Stadium is one of ours, Eden Project down in Cornwall, and for any Arsenal fans out there, the Emirates Stadium in North London, just to name a few. But we have come a long way since 1885. I know we've talked a lot about the facts around modern slavery. I took this slide, I think it was off a government website, but I don't think there's any harm in again, talking about and drilling home the message around the number of people that are involved in it. For me, one of the key statistics on that slide is around the 34% increase in victims since 2013. And I think that really drives home the message that this issue it's growing, and whether that's around people's awareness of it growing and therefore being able to report it and feel they can, I think that's a positive thing. But this is an issue and a topic that isn't going away, and we've acknowledged that, and therefore hopefully I will go through what I'm going to talk to you today is where we started. We're very much at the beginning of the journey in terms of our response. I think it's fair to say when the Modern Slavery Act came out, we were reactive, but now we're starting to be proactive in what we do, and we obviously hope to stay that way. So I thought I'd run through our first steps in regards to what we initially looked at, and I'll also provide at the end of the presentation give you some feedback on the challenges that we've come across and what we've learned as well. So in regards to our first step, we got in the room and we talked about, okay, we need to, in terms of what is our legal compliance, the Act states that if you have a turnover of over 36 million, you need to produce a statement. Our turnover is around 900 million, so obviously we needed to produce a statement. What time frame did that need to be done in, and who needed to be involved in that? And that very much acts as our baseline. Again, looking at the scope of how we were going to develop that statement, who needed to be involved, what areas of the business needed to be involved. And I'll come on to that again a bit later, but that, whether it was a challenge, but it was definitely something that we needed to look at in terms of the buy-in from the different business units. And I think a lot of people have spoken about the need for a collaborative approach, and that is something that I've very much taken away from the process. Modern Slavery Act and tackling modern slavery doesn't fit nicely into procurement, into HR, into legal, into sustainability. It bridges all those departments. What was our approach? Again, I know a lot of people have talked about the buy-in from your business. I can stand up here and confidently say that we've had buy-in from our board. It was very clear early on that they wanted we didn't want to sit back and sort of see what other people did. We wanted to make sure that as an industry we could act within our industry, we could act as an example to our supply chain and hopefully bring our supply chain and our clients along with us. So again, I'll talk about some of the things that we've gone through to hopefully show to them that we are doing that. And again, I think Elaine mentioned around the education of people. It became very clear early on that we needed to educate our staff, our people, about the topic. I have conversations with friends of mine who don't quite believe modern slavery is a problem in the UK. On our doorstep, there was this perception that it's an issue that's in faraway places, less developed countries, which it obviously is, but it's very prevalent on our doorstep. And therefore, we realized early on to really tackle that issue and have a really robust response to the issue that we needed to educate our staff, because they are our people on the ground. When you talk about your sites in the UK, your people, your staff are your eyes and your ears. They're going to spot it. You need to be able to empower them to act on it. And then lastly, again, we work from quite an early stage. We work with Shamir and the BRE in regards to the stakeholder group around the new ethical labour standard. And we had early on agreement that that's actually something that we wanted to go through, because we felt before we did anything else, we should look at our own processes and procedures, I suppose get our own house in order if that's the case, and then we could start from there. So that's something we went through, and I'll talk about in a bit. And just so linking back to those first sort of 5 steps that we took, what were the, I think, challenges or just things that we needed to make sure that we addressed to ensure that, again, our response was robust to the issue? I talked about education and awareness. That was clear from the start. How did we tackle that? Well, I'm pleased to say that we've rolled out an e-learning module to all our staff. That's the first port of call around modern slavery, to make sure that they are aware of actually what it is. Scope of what you're actually writing your statement for, and that might sound a bit silly, but to understand the full remit of your business and what you do, and understand that you might have different business units that operate quite differently, do different things, but understand that you might need to include that in your statement as well. And then governance. And again, governance, it wasn't around governance from our board. We had that buy-in early on. But what I think was something that, again, I've sort of mentioned, but it's governance from the different business units in your company. I think historically, often a topic can sit nicely in HR or sustainability, and then the other departments, like, that's fine, HR are dealing with it, or procurement are dealing with it. This isn't something that does that. You need buy-in from everyone. You need that collaborative action. And that was something that I realized very early on you needed to make sure people understood that. And again, talking about the ELS a bit later, I think that's really helped us get that buy-in. Again, and I think, I'm not sure who talked about it, maybe Elaine, it was you, but it's a realistic approach. We've acknowledged construction is far behind in terms of other industries in our response to this sort of wider issue around our supply chains. It's a huge issue. You've got to start somewhere, but you can't tackle everything at once. Otherwise, I don't think you get anything effectively rolled out. So it's taking a realistic approach. In terms of your business, look where you are, where are your high-risk areas, and tackle those first. So this is just a snapshot of our first statement. So I've said why, obviously, legally we had to write a statement. That was fine for us. This is on our homepage, on our external website. It's signed by 2 directors, in fact, our commercial director and also a family member. And it's very much our baseline of terms of where we started, what we do already. And this is very much see this as something that we can grow from. We talk about the fact that, I've mentioned our family values. We think there's a line in terms of the modern slavery and the issue. We think our family values in terms of combating that align with that. We acknowledge the complexity of our supply chain. We talked about sort of the fact, I said we're a UK civil and building contractor. We build projects in the UK, but our supply chains are global. And therefore, I suppose our business is global, and we acknowledge that. And that's part of the complexity that we need to address. We talk about the fact that we're going to educate our staff, and I can stand up here and say that we've rolled out an e-learning module. We've had incredibly positive feedback from that. We had rolled out some similar e-learning modules previously, and we learned quite a lot from those. We kept this one relatively short. It was 12 minutes. It meant that people could sit down at their computer with a cup of tea and do it in a break. There weren't too many questions involved, but it really drove home the issue of what modern slavery was, how would they spot it on site, and then what they could do. And it's really important you can educate your staff, but ensure that there are mechanisms behind that for them to report the issue and then also feel supported in that. And we also talk about the fact that our whistleblowing policy we rolled out, and the fact that there's a helpline there, and that is one means of reporting something that you think is wrong. So the BRE Ethical Labour Sourcing Standard, something that we've been through. We are now verified too, I'm really happy to say. I think we are the first main contractor to go through it. But why did we decide to go through this? And why did we think it would help? Well, a key message of the ethical labour sourcing standard is that it's about verification and alignment, not necessarily certification. It's not about passing or failing. There isn't a line that as soon as you jump over, you've passed, that's it. It's about having a very honest and open conversation about your business operations with the BRE verifiers, and then building in some really realistic objectives to improve your business over time. And I think that's really important, because that means ultimately you produce very robust measures to improve your business. As Elaine, I think you mentioned around commerciality, it provides an external validation. And I'm not going to stand up and say that we don't, that's fantastic. We can show to our clients, our stakeholders, our supply chain, that we're taking modern slavery seriously. We are at the beginning of the journey, but it's something that we take seriously. And we can then use that to engage with our supply chain, show them some leadership, and help bring them along that journey with us. In regards to what the standard actually does, it gives you that continuous improvement over time. The objectives that are set they're not in a year's time, a month before. It's like, crumbs, I've got to make sure I've hit all these objectives. They're set with timeframes. Of some of them we've got to close out in the next couple of months, over the next year. It's realistic and really manageable. And ultimately, it provides external support for tackling this issue, and I think that's really, really important. So, this is a copy of our verification certificate. So I'm really pleased to say that we've got that. That will be going back to our office today. And again, in regards to the objectives that we've got, they focus on 5 areas of our business. And that will be in regards to I'll move on to my next slide actually, in regards to our next steps in short term. It's around delivering the objectives of the ELS around those five areas, and we'll do that over the next year. We're obviously writing our second statement at the moment, and a lot of what I talked about will feed into that statement, and we can hopefully show that we are improving on our actions. We'll be engaging with our supply chain. We have carried out a very, very high-level risk assessment in terms of our packages and where we think work packages in construction and where we might think that there are higher risks. It is very high level, but that is our starting point, and we will start to engage with our supply chain on that. In terms of the long term, as I mentioned, the ELS, it looks across multiple different business units. I think there's 12 areas it looks at. The objectives that we've got currently focus on 5. So long term, we want to make sure we're looking at all those 12 different business areas. It looks around your HR, procurement, supply chain, management systems, structure. So we want to be delving into all those in the same way that our first 5 objectives do. I think it's very much fair to say, as I said, our first statement is our baseline. There is government guidance out there, as we've mentioned before, on what you put in your statement. We need to start developing areas around how we perhaps benchmark our supply chain, or whether that's KPIs or something else. But it's that I'm very much in belief it needs to be in collaboration with our supply chain, so they understand that. But that's something that we will need to start looking at. In summary, I just thought it might be helpful for, I guess, from my personal perspective, to give you the three things, I suppose, over the last 18 months that I've really learned, I think are imperative as when you're looking at an organisation like a main contractor and you're starting to tackle this issue. The three things that I think I've taken away. Firstly, educate your people. They are so important. They are who you are. They're your external front. Make sure they understand what the issue is and empower them so they can act. They are your asset, use them. Your biggest asset, use them. Scope of, in terms of who you need to buy in, and also the scope of what you're writing your statement for. Make sure you get that cross-company buy-in from those different units, HR, procurement, supply chain, sustainability. Only then, I think, will you get really, truly robust measures to tackle this issue. And that's it from me. So any questions, I think, will be at the end.